Hello, everybody. I hope you had a very productive classroom observation this morning and you had fun while learning something new. Now we're going to go back to that lesson that we couldn't finish. Okay, so let's go to the PowerPoint. Negation. Let's go back to it. So the approach that the book takes, it's much more conceptual as usual. So we'll look at it in this course and how it closely associates with communicative functions such as juxtaposing, contrasting, denying, excluding, contradicting, and reversing rather than just negating. And here we have the example of the cartoon where the teacher is telling the student your brain is like a sponge that absorbs knowledge, and then she tells or she adds, but that's not exactly how it's done. You're not going to learn by just putting the book on top of your head like a sponge absorbs liquid, right? Here we have negation using adverbs such as not and its contraction nt, uh, never and not ever. So we have MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. The first one is MoMA does not open at 8 a.m. MoMA doesn't open at 8 a.m. It never opens at 8 a.m. It doesn't ever open at 8 a.m. And then we have other elements that we can use. So we have Sophia leads a healthy lifestyle versus she lives an unhealthy lifestyle. The bookstore is conveniently located versus the bookstore is really inconveniently located. Just to give an example, Kyle prefers candy made with sugar, or Kyle prefers sugar-free or sugarless candy. There's just one truth in the story, or the rest of facts, if we want to call them that, were falsehoods, right? Now, let's have a look at this. When do we use H and Y? Let's have a look at what you did. All right. Here we go. Nice. So I said do activities 1 and 2 and post your impressions about when and how full forms are used versus contracted forms. And we have some very interesting comments here. Nicole says there's a certain formality tied to full forms rather than contracted forms. We can see this in the way we are instructed to never use contractions in an essay. That is very true. So formal versus informal perceptions, right? The theme of the book was not clear, is much more favored in an academic setting rather than the theme of the book wasn't clear since this form is too casual. Good. Michelle says, I find the full forms of negation to be more certain and true. Why is that? For example, I expect the following statement to be true and would not question it. Permits will not be required for special events at Mount Rushmore. And then in sticky note number 2, she says, when I hear won't be required, I have some uncertainty about whether this is true or not. It sounds like someone is presuming that permits will not be required. The formal negation seems to hold more authority than the contracted form. So it sounds more official, right? More proper. See? How something as simple as a contraction versus a full form evokes certain feelings and understandings of apparently the same message, but the difference is in how it is communicated to us. Good. So John says, I interpret the meaning of this question without ambiguity. To use the full not provides emphasis and clarity. English cares a great deal about word order, so shouldn't as opposed to should not result in very different meanings. Very interesting. This distinction becomes more clear in question 2. Going through the list, contractions are often casual statements of fact, but full words give emphasis and emotion. Hemingway didn't win versus Hemingway did not win. English when spoken quickly likes to slur and reduce words, So doing the full word gives emphasis in the same way a parent might call out their child's full name for emphasis and punishment. Good. That's a very good comparison. So, what did your mom call you when she was upset? Okay, very good, guys. Excellent. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Good. So, look at this. This is a very famous painting, and we have it in the following mini review and practice. So, in French, ceci n'est pas une pipe. This is not a pipe, but what do you see there? It is a pipe. That sounded like a pipe, right? So yes, it is a pipe, but what are they trying to tell us, right? What is the message? So what is the artist trying to say when they actually have a picture, and what we're used to is that there is some coherence between the text and the picture, and the text is probably explaining or expanding on what the picture is telling us, but what we read there is contradictory. So there is some disruption. Building on that, Alfredo Har created this display in Times Square. He did it initially in 1987, and he did it again in 2014 when Trump was getting ready to become a candidate, a presidential candidate, right? And it shows a map of the United States of America, and it says, "This is not America." Let me fill you in some cultural background for this form of reasoning. In Latin America, unless things have changed, what we learn in schools is that America is all of the Americas. What we call the Americas here, it's actually one big continent. Therefore, if you are from Colombia or Argentina or Chile, then by definition, you are an American because you're an inhabitant of the continent, right? So that is something important, and that's why in Spanish we resist using the term americano or americana. We use the term estadounidense, and what that means is someone from the United States. And this is something that kind of messes up with our brains. Hearing that one and just one country is referred to as America. But again, this is creating that disruption, putting it in a big billboard in Times Square where people walk by and see it, and just trying to evoke some kind of reaction by negating something that people take for granted. Okay, let's move on. So some prefixes that we commonly use: un, non, in, d, dis, mis, and so reversal, they mean or they imply a reversal of a process, a subjective or objective negation of an affirmative quality, a removal of something, to rid something of an element, wrong, incorrect, complete absence of. And we also have un with verbs, so another prefix. So the meaning of un plus a verb reverses a process. So we have do, undo, tie, untie, dress, undress, cover, uncover, friend, unfriend, and that is used for social media mostly, right? Like, unlike, again, social media. You like something and then you unlike it. So creative uses that accommodate to the reality of social media, right? Meaning of un plus adjective or un plus adverb. So it's a subjective negation. We have selfish, unselfish, unselfishly, helpful, unhelpful, unhelpfully, happy, unhappy, unhappily, usual, unusual, unusually, professional, unprofessional, unprofessionally, planned, unplanned, seen, unseen, able, unable, holy, unholy. So just one small comment. Maybe I didn't mention that the artist doing the display on Times Square, Alfredo Har, is from Chile. He's Chilean. Okay, let's continue. So on with nouns. So the meaning of on plus noun is a subjective negation of an affirmative entity or concept, subjectively indicating the opposite or inverse of an entity or concept. The formation of on plus noun is moderately productive. Unselfishness, unusefulness, unhelpfulness, unhappiness, unprofessionalism, unconcern, unrest. We have others, other prefixes in lm with adjectives, adverbs, and nouns. The meaning of nlm plus adjectives and adverbs or nouns is the subjective negation of an affirmative quality, subjectively indicating the opposite or inverse of a quality. The formation of these prefixes is very productive. The use of n, m, or depends on the sound in the original word that is being negated, and you can take a look at some examples. I'm not going to read them. There are many. We'll just take a look at a few of them. Sincere, insincere, conclusive, inconclusive, partial, impartial. So you see how phonetics and morphology, they go hand in hand. And then just as when the pronunciation of the ed suffix in the simple past form of regular verbs changes its pronunciation depending on the last sound of the verb, there's also implications for sound combinations, and in determining what type of pronoun you use, I mean not pronoun, what type of prefix you use in that case. Right, so let's move on. More prefixes. With verbs, so we have de-emphasize, de-ice, dis with verbs, discredit, disagree, miss with verbs and nouns, misunderstand, mishap, mistake, or n with adjectives and nouns, apathy, anonymous. And we have suffixes, noun plus less, as in odorless or sugarless. And then we have noun plus free, sugar-free, odor-free, with a hyphen there. Good. All right. So those are some important characteristics of negation. One thing to keep in mind is that English avoids redundancy, and this is especially noted in negation. So you don't have a double negative in a construction in regular standard English. You have that in slang, you have that in other varieties, and that creates a certain perception, just like what we learned about African American vernacular English and what the dictionary says about ain't, right? Which is a wonderful, very useful little word, because it could be don't, doesn't, not, isn't. It could be, it could negate anything, right? So, okay, that's what I wanted to briefly discuss this morning, but there wasn't enough time. Doesn't matter. That's why we have these pre-recorded lessons. Have a wonderful week. I will be addressing some topics to support your classroom observation, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. See you soon.